Glad to be able to make this presentation today on energy grants and incentives. And I'm with the SBDC and Small Business Development Center, which is an SBA resource partner. And SBDCs are in every state in the country. Our mission is to assist small businesses to be more successful in South Carolina. And we do that through one-on-one confidential consulting and educational outreach, workshops, webinars like we're doing today, and just connecting folks with resources like the good folks at Dominion and ICF and USDA, folks that we work with that do some great things for small business. Today's presentation will mostly focus on Dominion Energy incentives and the USDA program Rural Energy for America. And the reason for that is the USC Region SBDC, we kind of segment the state into different regions. USC mostly covers the Midlands and Low Country of South Carolina, and Dominion Energy is the utility provider for a lot of folks in those areas. As you may know, cooperatives usually cover the areas outside of the Dominion territories, and USDA obviously is a big investor in rural America as well. So with that, I will progress through the slides here. It's just a little bit of information about myself. I am a specialist consultant, and I specialize in food systems and rural small business. I've been working with the REA program for probably 5 or 6 years and helping folks with rural development products. So I've enjoyed working directly with the USDA rural development folks on various different projects, and have been able to bring more awareness to their programs, which I think are great. So a little bit about me. I'm at USC, University of South Carolina, with the SBDC. Just a few other links here. You folks will receive these slides, so these links are embedded. I put the Energy Saver link, which is a product developed by the South Carolina Energy Office. So you can actually go here and get a lot of good information about incentives all around the state that may not be mentioned in this program. Of course, there's a link to Dominion Energy's site and their incentives, and there'll be a link to USDA Reit program. And today on this call, we have some great people. Well, not all these people listed here will be on this webinar today, but we do have Denise Kemp with the USDA, and we also have Renisha Green with the USDA Rural Development Department. Both of those folks work with the REA program, and I believe Denise Kemp is the energy coordinator for South Carolina. So she's the point of contact, and both her and Renisha would be able to help with anything in regard to that, and they'll be here to answer questions that maybe I can't answer, or they can just maybe chime in as they like. Kelly Laird and Houston Bennett are both here with Dominion Energy and the Energy Wise program, ICF. They'll be talking about that coming up after this slide. Rick Campana, who's with the Office of Energy, is not on this webinar, but I would recommend, if you have interest in any energy issues or needs, to check out the Office of Energy's website. They're an advocate for South Carolina constituents and businesses. So they're there to advocate for you, the energy user. So they're a very helpful office. I would recommend, any issues that you might have to contact them as well, but a good resource for incentives and other things out there as well, and my contact information. So with that, I'd like to introduce Kelly Laird and Houston Bennett from Dominion. They're going to speak a little bit about all the great stuff Dominion has to offer small businesses and farms too in energy incentives. So I'm going to stop sharing here and allow you to share your screen.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Oh, I think I have something there. Okay, give me just a second. Well, I have the big screen. How do I get out of the big screen to the back to the small screen?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, whenever you go to share screen, it'll give you an option to choose your actual screen or the presentation. It'll give you several options. There you go.
There we go.
There we go. I'm
All right.
always the one that has the technical problems. So, so many of these different things and back and forth. I always forget. So, good morning there. Good afternoon, actually, everyone. My name is Kelly Laird, and I'm the Energy Ambassador for Dominion Energy's Small Business and Energy Wise for Your Business program overview and work inside of the chambers and associations. And on the line today, we have Houston Bennett, who is our account representative for the small business opportunities, which are a fantastic resource if you own a small business. When we speak of a small business at Dominion Energy, what we're usually looking for is a business who has a light bill that is less than about $3,000 a month, or the usage is below 350,000 kilowatts. So it's a lot of you. Most businesses are small businesses, and they are the backbone of our community, and especially the rural community. And we do offer agricultural assistance to any farm that is on a anything other than a residential rate. So if you have a commercial farm, you do qualify for these incentives, and we'll talk about a few special incentives that we have as well. And without further ado, Houston, if you'd like to take over and go ahead and start talking about the small business program.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Houston Bennett. Like Kelly said, I'm the account manager for the small business program. I've been in this position for about 9 months, and it's just really been a joy to meet all the new people and just kind of give that needed extra help. But yeah, next slide, Kelly. So here's our team at ICF. Our program manager for the Energy Wise for Your Business program is Jesse Herbal. My program manager for the small business program is Mike Trophy. Our project coordinator is Kate Paniza, and the project coordinator for the Energy Wise for Your Business program is Liv Stewart. I'm the account manager for the small business program, and below are our other account managers who help out where needed. Next slide. Next slide. So this slide is just a summary of the electric consumption by sector. As you'll see, majority of the industry is run by the industrial and the commercial sectors, with just the 38% being residential. Next slide. Some of the benefits of becoming more energy efficient. It helps you lower harmful pollution, creates jobs, reduces the burden, strengthens community resilience, and improves the bottom line for your business. Next slide. So what the Small Business Energy Solutions Program is, it's a turnkey program tailored to help owners of small business and nonprofit organizations. And to be eligible for this program, you will have to use 350,000 kilowatt hours annually or less, have been a Dominion Energy customer for over a year, and have fewer than 5 accounts. We offer simple, cost-effective options that are easy to follow and help you manage the refrigeration and lighting costs. Dominion, go back, Kelly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. With this program, Dominion will actually cover 90% of the project costs up to $6,000. The taxes are not included in that. And I would like to mention that currently, from January 1st all the way up until March 31st, we are actually offering a limited time offer where Dominion is actually covering 95% of the project cost. Next slide. The Small Business Energy Solution Programs provides easy access to control at least 30 to 70% of your energy usage. I'm gonna cover this in the next slide some more. Here's how it works. So the first thing you would need to do is get in contact with me to set you up with an energy audit. And this is where we offer a free audit. We send our contractors out, they come out to your facility, walk through, pretty much give you a customer report, and that's where they build the scope of work. After that, if you like everything that you see, you would then sign a participation agreement. That's just agreeing to everything that was proposed during the initial audit. After that is done, that is when the project is installed by our contractors. And after everything is installed and wrapped up, that's where Dominion Energy will send 90% of the project cost to the contractor, and then you'll be left with the 10% balance to fill. If you're interested in this program, please take a picture of this phone number right here, the 877-784-7234 number. That is the number that you will call to get into the program. Some of the things that we cover. So the first things first, our refrigeration measures. Some things that we can do with refrigeration is we can replace the walk-in cooler motor, replace the cooler lights, switch those out to LEDs. We have some controls that we can put in your refrigeration that pretty much shuts it off when your time of use isn't as high as usually it's during the nighttime. For lighting, we have TLEDs, TLEDs, screw-in LEDs, LED panels, LED high bays. We also do exit signs, occupancy sensors, and exterior lighting. Next slide. And our most recent incentive that we have brought into the program is our HVAC measures, and I'm fairly excited about this. With our HVAC program, our contractors will be able to clean off the coils, replace filters, lubricate moving parts, and tighten the electrical connections. We can also install smart thermostats. The thermostats will be Energy Star certified, and basically this allows you to control the temperature of your facility from your phone. We also do duct resealing. That's we use an aerosol patented technology where they come in and reseal the ducts. And then we also have HVAC controls that it's pretty much like the smart thermostat where it lets you control your unit from your phone. Next slide. So how does it work? We pretty much covered this in the previous slide. You call me to set up an audit. I send our contractors out. They give you a customer report. You sign it. After the work's completed, Dominion Energy sends 90% of the project costs to the contractor, leaving you with that 10% balance. Next slide. And here's another slide for the contact information. You can find more information on our website. And I'll put my personal phone number and email in the chat box. That way you guys have that as well. And I'll turn it over to you, Kelly.
Okay, and you will receive this, the PDF of this slideshow, and I'll go back in and correct that. I'm sorry that Houston's number was not on that previous slide. So Energy Wise for Your Business program overview. So I like to refer this to our big program. And so Energy Wise can be used really in any size of business, but it pays up to 50% of the cost to maximizing at $100,000 per project type. So it doesn't pay as much as the small business program, but you can choose your own contractor or you can use in-house staff. So that's the difference. It's really made for those folks that they're using over $3,000 a month. Which could be a warehouse, and it could be a lot of folks that do have small businesses. So I just like to go over that classification with you. But this program also helps the non-residential electric customers replace aging, inefficient equipment and systems with energy efficient technologies. And we offer financial incentives, which is a check, and you can choose if that check comes back to you at the end of the project, or it can be given to your contractor as a discount and they can receive the check, and you elect that when you do the application just by checking a box. And so the technical assistance, also, we have a program where if you're having someone look at, a large building envelope, or looking at really changing a lot of factors, and you need that guidance, then you can get part of that paid for. And then this is a flexible program, and this is made for the customers who want to engage their own contractor or your own in-house staff. Also, if something happens that, you can't wait a whole year because you're, building out a new retail space, this program would work for you. So it's always important just to get us involved in the beginning of your project. We'll work together to get you into the best program that has the best financial incentive for you. And so there are all kinds of different participating business types, because all businesses who are not opted out of the program qualify for these programs. That's grocery stores, healthcare facilities, hotel and lodging, farms, churches, restaurants, schools, universities, warehouses, anybody who's a nonprofit. It doesn't matter what sector, as long as you are on a commercial rate with Dominion Energy, then you would qualify for these incentives. And this has been an extremely successful program, and we have distributed over $38 million in incentives back to folks. This is post-tax money. So this is part of a rate rider, and it is a pool of money that is gathered, and it is given back to you for improving the efficiency of your building. And it is post-tax money. So it is very valuable pennies. And our Energy Wise for Your Business financial incentive offerings consists of lighting projects. That might be a retrofit to a building. So you're just taking out the old bulbs, you're putting in new LEDs. It might be new construction, or it might even be a major renovation. And then we also have our HVAC program. So if you need a new HVAC and you're in a small business, then you qualify for these incentives, as well as chillers, or if you're replacing the VFD to make the equipment more efficient. Also the food services and high efficiency equipment. So this is for electric cooking and commercial clothes washing and refrigeration, like your reach-in coolers, those kind of things. And if they need to be Energy Star equipment. For the HVAC and the food services equipment, there's not a pre-approval necessary. It does need to be within 90 days of purchase, but we know that you can't wait around to get a new fryer, or we don't expect you to freeze to death or be out in the heat. So but all other programs do need a pre-approval. The custom program, that's going to be your technical assistance, a whole building solution. It could be a chiller plant. It could be, if you had some sort of technology that you were looking to change, or a whole, a solution for a large plant, anything like that falls under the custom. And then the cool roofs is a new incentive that we have available. It became available in 2021. And this is a great program for anybody who's installing an Energy Star roof on a commercial property. And right now, Energy Wise for Your Business also has a limited time offer. So in the small business, Houston was saying that it's a 95% payout. And we also have an additional 5% or additional 25% incentive at Energy Wise. So instead of a maximum of $100,000 per project type, you can get $125,000 if you have the application in by April the 30th. So especially on those lighting projects, if you haven't changed the lights, that is the first place to start. They use a lot of energy, and that would be a wonderful place to incentivize, to maximize your incentives. incentives. The agriculture incentives, these are new to us as of last year. The program primarily targets poultry, swine, dairy, horticulture, and aquaculture. There are heating pads and pre-milk coolers, the well pump tune-ups. If you're replacing the VFD on well pumps for irrigation, also lighting, horticultural lighting replacement. That is in the program, but also, almost all types of lighting can qualify for lighting. It needs to usually be design consortium lighting listed, but also if there is something that's an exterior light or specialized light, then we can do a comparison. And if you're, that can become a custom project as well. And then what is the process? So we have an application. Again, the program is available to all commercial electric customers. There are a few customers who have opted out of the program. That's going to be, your Shaws, your Michelins, because they're doing these kind of projects and are involved in a different way. But opted out customers are required to opt back in to apply for and receive incentives. So say that Michelin was going to do a ton of work, then they could opt back in, receive these incentives, and then after 3 years opt back out. So but the main thing is the written pre-approval is required prior to ordering, purchasing, or installing equipment for most applications, minus the HVAC or the food equipment. We just need to talk to you before you do the work so that we can help to make sure that you know how to process the application and see what you already have in and what you're replacing. And then also the reason that we have the written pre-approval is so that you can make that decision, like, is it going to be worth it? Or could I even do a higher level of equipment based on the offset of this cost? So the pre-approval commitment is valid for 180 days for retrofit applications and 1 year for new construction. We can work with you on that, so please get us involved as early as you can. And the process overview again is 1, always call us. And then 2 is you fill out the application and you submit that. Typically that is a lot of that is done by your contractor or the distributor. And then you order, purchase, and install your equipment. You sign and return the letter and the final documents, which is your invoice, and the signed letter is the actual pre-approval letter. And what that is saying is that you're satisfied with the work and that the project has been completed. And then you receive a letter with an incentive check. So and here, if anybody has any questions, also here's my name and my mobile phone number. Are there any questions?
I think there were some questions in the chat.
Oh, can you see those? Is Duke Energy part of Dominican? Duke Energy is a separate company. They do have very similar programs, and I believe theirs is called Super Saver, and you certainly can reach out to them. Typically, you can just look on the website and you can find an 800 number.
And Kelly, I answered that. This is Carolyn. I answered that. And I encourage that person to reach out to Jim Johnson because he knows some of the details of the Duke Energy program. And so I gave them Jim's contact information to answer those questions.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. And Jim can always get you to one of us or to those resources. And do you assist with new projects? So a new project, that can mean a lot in our world. So if your business is a small business, it would depend.
I think they're talking about starting a business.
Okay, so if you start a business, you do need to be in the building for 1 year before you can qualify for small business, but the Energy Wise for your business program is open to you. So it would pay up to 50% of the cost for your energy efficient equipment and the installation. But we would just need to go ahead and get involved with that early on. What is considered commercial? Was the list on a previous slide, or is it by wattage usage? So commercial is any business account. So a residential account, it is at your house. And I think if you had a business account, that would mean that you would know that. And typically you have, a W-9 and you have a DBA or business name on that account. It is tied to rate. So we would just have to look at it to see if it is a business account.
Some people ask about Jim's contact information. He will be providing that during his section of the presentation. So that will be coming up. Also, there is one, you also stated that nonprofits qualify for this funding, correct?
Absolutely. And we will definitely look to see if you can qualify for this small business, because again, that it pays up to 95% right now. But you do qualify for Energy Wise for your business should that not fit your needs. So we'd love to talk with you. If you're currently on a residential plan and switch to a business plan, so you probably could. So you need to switch that over and still be in the program for up to a year. So say like, you converted a home to a daycare. Then, once you talk to Dominion, you change over to that commercial account for the qualifying for small business. You would need to be in that account for a year, but you could go ahead and use the Energy Wise. So again, if you would call us before you buy any products, please, give us a call and we'll help you with that.
So another question from the person who asked previously about will you help with startups? And thank you, Sarah, for your questions. Sarah is looking at opening a residential care facility in the Gadsden, South Carolina area. And so her next question is, so you will assist with startup 50%.
So if you are, it's for the installation of energy efficient equipment. So it doesn't mean that we'll pay. I could talk with you offline, but it doesn't mean that we'll pay for, the whole building. It means that for the energy efficient equipment, that you could qualify for up to 50%, but that is based on the watt reduced. So if the house is using, 100-watt bulbs and you move those down to 10-watt bulbs, you would take, it's 35 cents per watt reduced. And we would pay up to 50% for the cost for that project based on watt reduced. So you can qualify for up to 50%, but it is an individual program, and we would just need to be able to look at it. And for something like that, even if you go to Home Depot and you replace with high quality light bulbs, then our program would pay for that. They do need to be design consortium listed, but we definitely could work through that and help you make those selections so that you could get incentive money towards the purchase of your light bulbs. For residential folks, you also can buy light bulbs through the Dominion Energy website, and they're at a very reduced rate. So that's just FYI out there as well. What if you've already ordered equipment for renovations, but it hasn't arrived or been installed? So you do need to have us involved before you order the equipment. So if it hasn't arrived or been installed, and you've already got a purchase order, then it would not qualify. We need the purchase order to be post-dated, the pre-approval letter, so to help you make that decision. This is an incentive, not a rebate. So that's the way that works. If something happens that equipment's not ready, then, and you have to make new selections, then I would say that then it would qualify. And we'd love to talk to you more about that, Mr. Jones.
Okay, I think that I think we have all our questions. So we can move to the next portion of the presentation. If you want to
Stop sharing. Okay,
let me share
perfect.
my screen now. There we go. Well, thank you, Kelly and Houston. It's good information for sure. And folks will also be receiving this slide presentation, which has all the contact information, and also you'll receive Dominion slides as well, which has their contact info with embedded there as well. So we're going to move on and talk a little bit more about the REAP program, which stands for Rural Energy for America. And REAP is a grant program by the USDA Rural Development. And it's been around for quite some time now. And it's very valuable program for folks who are interested in some of the same types of projects, energy efficiency improvements, but also renewable energy systems. So the REAP program provides both guaranteed loan financing and grant funding to agricultural producers and rural small businesses for renewable energy systems or to make energy efficiency improvements. Agricultural producers may also apply for new energy efficient equipment and new system loans for agricultural production and processing. The available funding, right now, grants can cover up to 40% of total eligible project costs. This is a new change in the program. The REAP program historically has covered 25% of eligible project costs, but it was recently increased to 40%. So that's pretty huge, significant for sure. Loan guarantees on loans can cover up to 75% of total eligible costs, and combined grant and loan up to 75% of the eligible costs. The Rural Energy for America program was funded with an additional $2.02 billion over the next decade. Hopefully they'll, go to serve and help over 45,000 farms and small businesses. 1.7 billion goes to REAP. 304 million will go to underutilized technologies and technical assistance. I do not know all the ins and outs of the underutilized technologies aspect of this funding. Hopefully we can get Denise or Renisha at the end of the presentation here to tell us a little bit more about underutilized technologies. I do know that technical assistance is a grant that would go probably to a institution, nonprofit entity that would offer technical assistance to folks who are applying for the REAP program, universities, state governments, and whatnot. So the REAP notice of 2023, $250 million are available. This is nationwide. 50 million in mandatory funds. Some of the highlights of the funding include the increases I just mentioned to 40% for all REAP projects. And also, as it was, the maximum grant size was 250,000 for energy efficiency grants and 500,000 for renewable energy systems. So that's been increased to 500,000 for energy efficiency grants and $1 million for renewable energy systems. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the slide. But as you can see, there's been a lot of increase in this program, which is great. The 250 million nationwide, each state is basically allocated a certain amount. So South Carolina, of that, 250 million, they get a portion of that. They have a formula for how they distribute that, but there is only a certain amount of funds available for South Carolina. The REAP program, the grant program, is a competitive program. So if the USDA received more grants requests than there's money available, then you would get into a competitive process where these grants are scored, right? And so highest score would win until basically they ran out of money. The program has historically been able to help most folks who apply and are eligible. So hopefully, if you can get a good application submitted, you have a good chance of getting the funding. No guarantee, of course, as you know, with grants. But they are scored, and we'll talk a little bit more about the scoring and how they score these applications. So let's get more into Rural Energy for America program and what it covers and the eligibility requirements for the program. So eligibility is key. You need to have an eligible entity, and you need to have an eligible project, and you need to spend money on eligible project activities. So you always start with, am I eligible applicant, right? So as I mentioned, you can be an agricultural producer or a rural small business to qualify for this program. Under the agricultural producer, you have to show that at least 51% of the entity's income comes from production, crops, livestock, aquaculture, so forth and so on. And for profits, if you're not an agriculture, and the other interesting thing about agricultural producers is you can be in an urban setting. So you can have a urban farm in the middle of Richland County in the city of Columbia and qualify as long as you're an agricultural producer and fit the 51% or more. Under a rural small business, it's for profit small businesses as defined by the SBA. And if you're interested, if you are eligible based on SBA standards, you can actually check out the SBA website. I'll scoot it on over here real quick. So yeah, this is the SBA website, and here you can just Google SBA size standards and then get to the site and come in and determine whether you're considered eligible as a small business based on your NAICS code, your NAICS code, which is the industry designation. And a rule of thumb is really with the SBA, if you have under 500 employees, you're probably considered a small business. But there are other considerations, so you definitely have to check. There's how much you make on sales, and there's also the number of employees that you have. So between those two things, you could be a small business and be a considerable size company, or you could be a small company and not a small business because of the amount of revenue that you create. So you definitely need to check the SBA website to confirm that. Also, this being a rural small business, you need to be in an area, a non-metro area, under 50,000. And there are tools to check to see if you're in the correct area. And I'll get to that tool. I think it's in the next slide. So basically, ag producers can be rural or urban. Also, you can be a nonprofit, but you still have to have that meet that standard or requirement of over 50% rule of production activities from the nonprofit. Small business, of course, we just discussed that. Nonprofits are not eligible as a small business, only as an agricultural producer. Also, tribal corporations and other tribal business entities chartered under Section 17 are eligible. So this is the tool that you can use to try to find out if you're in an eligible area. There's a link embedded here, but you can also just go to Google and type in USDA eligibility, and it will take you to this site here. You have to ensure that you click rural small business, because there's different programs, and sometimes the eligibility maps vary depending on the program that you're looking into. So you want to make sure that you're under the rural business program, and then just type it in here. Let's type this address. I'm in Orangeburg, and it's not my home address. So just like to show you all the map here and how it outlines it. There it is. So I'm in Orangeburg, in the middle of Orangeburg, and it is eligible. It's an eligible location. If you zoom out, you can kind of see some of these areas that are in like a orangish color. You can see that those are ineligible areas. And everything outside of those areas are eligible. So pretty easy to use. So it's a good tool to find out if you're an eligible applicant. You really don't want to go too far, before you figure out if you're eligible or not. Oops. So go back here. Yep. So the next slide is renewable energy systems. So really the REAP program has two parts. One is renewable energy systems. Another is energy efficiency upgrades. So what type of projects are eligible for renewable energy? Solar, probably the most popular, especially in South Carolina, but also wind, hydroelectric, anaerobic digestion, biomass, geothermal, and wave ocean power. So kind of a wide array of options for renewable energy. But again, I think solar is the most popular, just because I think that's an affordable, trending technology that small businesses can access fairly easily. The other program, the EEP, Energy Efficiency Program, includes such projects as lighting, some very similar to what you saw in the Dominion presentation. It has lighting, heating, cooling, ventilation, fans, automatic controls, and insulation. So many small businesses from time to time, as their properties, age and depreciate and, have to be maintained and replaced, you're doing a lot of these activities anyway, right? You have to replace the HVAC eventually. And usually when you replace the HVAC, you're going to a higher SEER rated, unit that's going to be more efficient, right? There's fans, there's in automated controls are great if you don't already have them to control expenses. So all great programs, all eligible. It's worth calling and if you have an idea that's not on that list necessarily. I've seen some things that are not on that list that have been approved. But the main goal is that does it cost at the result of installing this project, does it result in a net energy savings, right? So what are some eligible project costs? So you're an eligible applicant, you have an eligible project. So what project costs are eligible within that project? So equipment, the purchase and installation of that equipment, new and refurbished. The key with the new and refurbished is that it needs to be, warranted. It needs to be approved, and available in the U.S. market. Can't be used, as you'll see, under ineligible projects. Post-application construction and facility improvements. Post-application, that should be highlighted. Whenever you're, this actually came up in the chat earlier under Dominion, but whenever you're going to start the project, you need to have your application submitted to the USDA, and you need to receive a letter from the USDA stating that your application has been received and it has been reviewed and you're okay to proceed with your project. So if you proceed with your project before you submit your application to the USDA and you get that response from them, then those would be ineligible costs. So you can't start your project before you get a verified completed application in. That's still no guarantee that you'll receive the award. You would there are deadlines, which you'll see in a couple slides. Award notifications go out after, probably a month or two, probably 2 months after the deadline. And then after you receive the award notification, the allocation, then you would understand that you're going to receive the funds. So post-application construction is eligible, and facility improvements, retrofitting, professional services in regards to it, permits and licensing, working capital land acquisition only through the loan program. So the grant would not pay for any working capital or pay for your land acquisition or buying any land. But if you get a loan to do that, that's a little different. Ineligible project costs would be residential energy projects with an asterisk. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But for the rule of thumb, that's residential only is definitely ineligible. Equipment like farm tillage equipment, used equipment, vehicles, any of those ineligible. Pre-application construction and facilities, emphasizing again that you have to get the application in before you start the process. Application preparation or grant writer fees. So if you hire somebody to write this grant for you and they charge you a fee, you can, that's not covered. That's just coming right out of your pocket, which is fine. There's many great grant writers out there that can help with this process, and it's very helpful. Lines of credit, you can't pay off lines of credit. You can't pay lease payments. Payment to the applicant, business owner, beneficiary, or relative. You can't pay yourself, right? These are to pay the expenses on the project. So those are some, and the thing is with all of this, if you're interested in moving forward, getting in touch with me or the USDA, because this is a general overview. There's a lot more detail that goes into these, and every project is unique. So we have to look at the project, each individually and answer questions based on what's proposed. So how much can you ask for? So under the renewable energy system, RES, this is solar, wind, etc. The minimum grant is $2,500, which would be a 6250 project essentially, up to $1 million, which is a 2.5 million. So you can apply for as much as $2.5 million project, which would be a very big project. One thing to consider, if you're applying for this program and your project is upwards of, a couple $1 million, $1 million, you have to remember that South Carolina is only given a limited amount of money. They're allocated a limited amount of money. USDA would like to impact as many small businesses and farms as they can. And if one applicant, puts in a request that would take the whole allocation or all the money that they have available, they might be like, well, that's, I don't know about that. It could be though that you just don't, request the whole amount. If it's a huge project, maybe you just request a smaller amount, cut it back a little bit, understanding that other people are interested in applying. It's going to be competitive and they want to spread, the money around the state, around the many people, and impact and help as many people as they can. Under the energy efficiency improvements, the smallest grant is $1,500, which would be a 3750 project, which could be lighting, it could be an HVAC, something small as that. But it goes up to $500,000 grant, 1.2 million, 25 million project, which would be a pretty big energy efficiency project. Yeah, so as far as the loan goes, the REAP guarantee loan pays up to 75% of the eligible project. So if you had $100,000 project, you could potentially get a loan of up to $75,000 that's guaranteed by the USDA. What that means is you would have to find a commercial lender that would work with the USDA guarantee program. So the commercial lender would actually be lending you the money, and the USDA would be guaranteeing the loan for the commercial lender. So it's really, you need to find that lender who works with these type projects and works with the USDA guarantee. It's up to 25 million, which, you know, is a pretty big guarantee. And most, like the SBA, only goes up to 5 million for their guarantees. So up to 25 million for USDA can be a very big project. Of course, terms are negotiated between the lender and the borrower, and fees and appraisals and equity and collateral requirements might apply. So some REAP application deadlines. So when you can actually submit your application anytime. It's a rolling application, it's open all the time. But there are 2 deadlines a year, basically, where they will look at the applications and allocate and fund. One of those is coming up for request over $20,000, and that's March 31st. And I think there's another slide that we'll talk about the other deadline coming up here. So some important highlights: no residential benefits allowed. Shared meeting device equals additional restrictions. Energy assessment, possible installation of a second meter. So if you do have residential, it doesn't necessarily count things out. It obviously has to be for the business, but if you wanted to, you know, use like a solar panel and it would, you know, come over to your house, there's going to be some additional requirements, additional documentation. You might not score as high, you know, as other applicants who are just strictly business, you know. So there's a lot of considerations if you want to try to use it on residential and split it between business and residential. So that would be one where you definitely want to talk a little bit more to the energy coordinator and the consultant. Unless you're an ag producer, area must be an eligible area. So yeah, if you're a rural small business, got to be eligible. We talked about that. REAP prohibits receiving more than 40% grant from a federal source. So a good example of that is you're applying for the REAP program for, you know, an energy efficiency project, and you're asking for 40% of the project costs. You can't. So NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Services, which is another USDA division, they also have an energy program. And if you're an agricultural producer, you would be eligible for that program, possibly. You'd have to go through the whole process with NRCS and their conservationists in the EQIP program. But you could not apply for NRCS grant for energy efficiency upgrade and the REAP grant for the same project. That would be 2 federal funding sources, right? So can't do that. If selected, you have 2 years to complete the project. You would need to register in sam.gov, and I'd recommend doing that as soon as possible. Sometimes that process lately has been, can take a little while. Only cost incurred after a complete application is received or eligible. And I would add to that, not just a complete application, but received by the USDA and verified that you can start your project. You want something in writing, an email that says, hey, got everything, looks good, you can go. So how do you apply? You can contact the USDA Rural Development Energy Coordinator, which we have the information here with Denise Kemp and Renisha Green. Application packages can be found under the To Apply tab on the website, the Rural Energy for America website under the USDA. You just, Google USDA Reit and you'll go right to it. Applications can be posted, emailed, or you can go through grantscott.gov. SBDC consultants offer free technical assistance with the grant application. That's me. So I work for the SBDC. I do offer no charge technical assistance on this grant, and I have worked with many of them over the years. I'm a good resource, to ask questions, help get all the documents together for the grant, and would be happy to help in any way. And at this point, before I get to questions, I wanted to show you the application. There are 3 different applications, actually. There's an application, here we go, under 80,000. That's the 4280-3A. There's an application between 80,000 and 250,000. That's the 3B. And then there's one for over 250,000, the 4283C. I'm just going to show you the 4283A. They're different requirements and regulations depending on the thresholds and how much money you're asking for. So in some cases under 80,000, you'd have to meet certain requirements or have certain activities, whereas you might not in bigger ones, or you might have more in bigger ones. But I wanted to show you this one. This grant is really scored and based on technical merits. Technical merits being, how much energy you're going to save, what is the payback period, and some other things that you'll see here soon. So they want the most impact, for the environment. In the end, this is an environmental program, and the benefits of energy efficiency and renewable energy is the impact it has on the environment. So anyway, you just have some basic stuff here about basic information, project title, SAM. You'll need your SAM number, your cage code, or your agricultural producer, your NAICS code. Some more questions about the applicant here. In regards to the system and how you'll take care of the system, and a little bit more about your business. Then it gets down to the project. What's your project? Is it a renewable energy project, or and what type of renewable energy? So then you get it more into the project description. What are you planning on doing? All this also helps with scores and them understanding what you're doing. Another section on the breakdown of the cost of the project here. So you can understand where all the eligible expenditures are. And then you get into the section that looks at the technical merit of the project. This is where the rubber meets the road, really. Estimated project energy generations or savings and cost of energy. So if you're putting in a renewable energy system, they want to know, well, how much is it going to generate in kilowatts? And then they also want to know, are you going to try to sell this energy, back to the utility provider like Dominion or the cooperative or whoever your utility provider might be? And if you are, if you're intending on net metering, it's called, you would need a net metering agreement in advance. That would be submitted with the application. And there may be other documentation and requirements if you're planning on net metering that would go into the application. Also, if you have other byproducts or other revenues that you would be making somehow off of this project, they would need to know a little bit about that. Then, they ask, well, how much energy are you going to be producing? And then, well, how much energy are you using right now? They want to know your current energy usage. And they need to know at least 12 months of your current energy usage. So you would have to submit utility bills and they need to know your actual energy usage. So you would have to look at your statements and determine if there's any fees embedded that you can't see on your statement. And you do that by getting a rate sheet from the utility provider and kind of doing the math and figuring out if what you're charged based on your kilowatt usage comes out to be what's on your bill. Because there could be fees embedded in there that are not line itemed out in your bill. And so that needs, because they are just reimbursed, they're just making these calculations based on actual energy usage and not additional fees. And so you need to figure out actual cost of energy versus things like other taxes or fees and other things that can be in there. Anyway, once you know what's going to be produced, your historical usage, you can do the math, and the bottom line is figuring out the payback period from the energy savings. How long would it take you to pay off the project cost over time, not including the incentive that you'd be receiving from USDA. So I've seen them all over the board. As far as payback periods, depends on how big the project is, how much you've used, how much it generates. I do know that there are some lenders who have energy loan funds that pay for energy projects and renewable energy projects. And generally their rule of thumb is they won't loan you anything unless the payback period is less than 10 years. That's just their requirements though. That doesn't necessarily mean you won't get, funded for a grant that has a payback period for more than, 10 years. I've seen them up to 40 years. So anyway, it could be anywhere from a couple of years to 40 years. It just depends, what the numbers are. But, that's a area of merit there. So that's one thing that you should look at a renewable energy systems. You also have to have a qualified providers install this. And so they'll have to be licensed, permitted to do the work. You can't just have your handyman do it. All their information would go here. And any other third-party provider that you would use, the information would go here. And then getting into your renewable energy system projects. There's going to have to be a energy assessment, so to speak, and a technical certification report submitted for renewable energy systems. So here's saying that you would attach that, and it has to incorporate all the regulation and guidelines of what the grant is asking for, which is it's a lot of different things. I'm not going to go over every little regulation and requirement, but if you work with us or the energy coordinator, we can help you direct the folks who are involved in this, whether it's the vendor or another energy assessor or those type folks that are doing the reports. We can show them exactly what needs to be in there, because if the report, most reports, a lot of them are good and they're gonna hit all of the things that are required. Some of them are missing, and they need to account for that. So some renewable systems may require a feasibility study. That's just a case-by-case basis. I have not had to work with a feasibility study, but if that's the case, then you probably have to hire a third-party consultant to do that. So I'd imagine that's a pretty big project. And so the energy efficiency improvements are a little different, the requirements here. One thing is you definitely have to have with the RES renewable energy, you have to have a site assessment. Here you need either an energy assessment or an energy audit, depending on how big the project is. For under 80,000, it's an energy assessment, which is pretty low level assessment. that can be done by several types of qualified individuals. Energy audits it's a lot more in depth, probably a lot more expensive to get an audit. And either one has to be done by a qualified individual, contractor. We have a list of those different folks that can do that. Sometimes, like in the case of Dominion, they may have services for assessments, maybe audits. I don't know if it will qualify for an audit from Dominion and their engineers or the folks that do their assessments and audits. Have to look into it, but I'm sure if they're a qualified individual to do audits, that would be okay. So that's one of the kickers for the energy assessment, the energy efficiency improvement project, is that you need the assessment. And the big projects, you need an audit. But under the actual grant, you're looking at, hey, what's your existing usage of energy based on the equipment that you have, in the location now, and then what's your proposed usage based on what you're replacing. So if it's a lighting project and you have fluorescent light bulbs, you're putting in LED. So what's your energy usage with fluorescent? What will your energy usage be with LED? You kind of do the math and you come up with a savings amount, and do some more math and you come up with a payback based on how much the project costs. And so all this goes in there. So it's really you can see it's very technical based, all about the numbers, how much are you going to save. But it does get into a section here that asks about the resource conservation, the benefit to society, to the environment, and things like that. And you would answer a couple questions here. Another thing that kind of trips people up with the REAP program a little bit, I won't say it trips them up, but, I've seen it, be an impediment to moving forward, is that you need to have the funds, for the grant in advance, so that you have to pay for the project is reimbursed, right? After the project is complete, they come out and inspect, look, hey, yeah, you put in the lights, or you install the HVAC, or you have a solar system, looks good. Okay, we're going to reimburse you now. So you need to have those funds available. You need to have access to those funds and show that you have access to those funds, that you're committing to the project. Some folks may not have it, but if you can get a line of credit, if you get a loan, you have other ways of accessing and showing that you have access, then you just need to show. But you're gonna complete the project and be reimbursed. And have something about relationships with USDA employees, some other things about you being in good standing with the federal government, and also a bunch of certifications that you would have to look through and see if they apply to you or not. And then there's additional supplemental forms that go along with the main application there. I won't go into all those forms, but I just like to go over that application, because I think it's good to see it. And it answers a lot of questions that you don't necessarily see in the regular presentation. And I didn't mention that the other deadline, I thought it came up somewhere else in here, but the other deadline is in October 31st for what they call under 80,000. And then the one coming up here at the end of March is for all grants, essentially. Anything over 80,000, or any grant really. So yeah, it's this is everybody's information again. It's a great program. We'd be glad to answer any questions now that folks may have. And I do have Ms. Kemp and Ms. Green on the call here too with the USDA. So if it's something that I might not be able to handle.
So Jim, I can start sharing some of the questions that we have. And if I'm repeating these questions that have already been answered, my apologies. So we have, one of the things I did want to mention first off is if you have clients that are interested in this information and your information gathering, what I would strongly suggest is that you recommend those clients to contact Jim and receive his no-cost one-on-one confidential consulting services instead of interpreting this information to give it to someone else. So with that being said, so we have, thank you, Gary Jones. I am in the process of renovating sections of my business. So do these apply to the renovations? This is for a Piggly Wiggly in St. Matthews.
So the answer to that is it depends on where you are in the project. When I went over like eligible and ineligible costs, if you already started on the improvements, then those would be ineligible. But if you're kind of midway and you haven't gotten all the projects started, any project that you start after you get your application in and get that, verified and approved, and get notification from USDA, anything after that would be eligible. So let's say maybe I haven't seen all your projects, but if I know you have the grocery store and you may be replacing refrigeration. So maybe you already ordered a refrigerator, and that's been installed or it's to be installed. That would be ineligible because you already ordered it. Maybe it's there or whatever. But there may be other refrigeration units you haven't ordered. We would put those into the project because those should be eligible because you hadn't ordered them, you hadn't paid for them. It would be something that we can put in there. It wouldn't be ineligible. But I'd be glad to talk to you, Mr. Jones. I need to come by and see you.
So here's another question from Susan Carson. And the question is, can you match Dominion dollars with REAP dollars on a project?
I figured this question would come up. I was thinking about it when Dominion was making their presentation, but my understanding is yes. Those are non-federal dollars, from a private company. So I would say that my interpretation would be, yeah, you could apply for both incentives. Ms. Kemp, do you have any, or Ms. Green, do you have any comment on that?
No, that's how I would understand it as well. As long as it's not a federal grant, we're fine with that.
Okay, so the next question we have is from Tiffany. Thank you. Residential energy projects equal rental property is not eligible, correct? And then she proceeds to say, my question is in reference to the grant. My rentals are under an LLC.
Okay. Seems like I've gotten this question before in the past. So basically you have a rental property and you want to either improve energy efficiency or, put in solar. What do you think, Ms. Kemp? Would that be eligible a rental property?
If it's residential, then in nature, then no, it's not eligible.
Okay, so it would have to be commercially zoned,
Yes.
commercial property versus, a residential house in a residentially zoned area that you just happen to rent out.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So you answered the question about Dominion Energy dollars and the REAP grant dollars, but so that would be the same question as, can you apply for both a USDA grant and incentive programs from Dominion?
Yes.
So you can.
Yes.
So here's another one. Would this help cover cost of battery systems for solar storage?
I would say usually the battery systems are installed, you know, with the solar project when the panels come. But I understand that you can just install solar panels, then later, you know, install batteries. So the thing, I mean, my first reaction is, and I asked Ms. Kemp, is that it would be no. It's not creating an energy efficiency savings. It's just storing the energy. Because initially it could, I mean, that could be a little wrong though. I know that the idea would be that you would have to prove and document the energy savings that the batteries would create, and how would they create that. I know initially when you put the solar on, you know, you're going to calculate that. And you can pretty easily probably calculate the savings. The battery, I'm not so sure. Have you come across that, Ms. Kemp?
Like you said, we always have them together with the solar system, and they are part of the project. Having it separate, I would think that would be eligible, but I haven't run across that yet.
That would be a side conversation for sure, because
Yes.
we would have to look at it, you know, and determine if there would be a net savings from it.
I believe they also need more of a technical report or
Right.
feasibility study for the battery systems, if that's involved. So yeah, that would be something I'd have to talk
That's
to
a little
them
bit
about.
more of a complex project, I would call
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So the next question is, I am a farmer. I have a building that I would like to renovate into a commercial kitchen to prepare added value items from the produce on my farm. Will REAP assist with energy efficient items and repairs?
The energy efficiency items in the new expansion, I'm not sure that would qualify because
You have to have the history.
correct. You have to have it. There's no history, and you're not saving, you're adding.
Right.
And this would be additional equipment would probably increase your energy costs, because you're, you know, adding additional equipment. But the main thing, like Ms. Kemp says, is that you have to have a history.
Right.
So the next one is there a list of qualified providers on the USDA website?
I don't think there's a list on the website. I have a list. Ms. Kemp, do y'all have a list of some of the providers?
No.
Whether they're assessors or vendors?
I do have a list of some consultants or assessment auditors, but not anything with the solar or anything like that.
So the follow-up to this is that list located in the RFP packet on grants.gov for this federal funding opportunity?
No. The packet would be on, you know, a national site, and they don't have local vendors on there. They don't have vendors at all. But I do have some vendors that I could forward a list of vendors that solar vendors, like Ms. Kemp said, some assessors and auditors, some folks like that would need to be involved in the project.
And Kelly also provided a comment earlier. The assessment could qualify for tech assistance. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, it is technical assistance. If they charge for it, though, it's an ineligible. In this grant, it's an ineligible expenditure. That particular technical assistant aspect. There's a different technical assistant grant, but that's more for the folks who are offering technical assistance. And then they can offer it free to people because they're getting a grant from the government to do it. But in the context of the grant, you know, if that TA has a cost to it, it wouldn't be eligible.
So a few people have been saying, when would you be able to meet? addressing that to Jim, and I would like to speak to you. Please reach out to Jim via email, and he will schedule a time to speak with you, and his email address is there.
Yeah. It's right down at the bottom. You can, I'll send you a calendar and then you can just sign up for an open slot. Be glad to meet with you.
So Jim, this is Kelly. I have a quick question back on that technical assistance. So say that, I don't know, Mr. Jones grocery store, and he's going to do a full build out on that, and he needs some help with technical assistance, and involves an engineer to see what he can do to make it most efficient. I believe, especially like in the HVAC chiller world, that there's a technical assistance piece that Dominion would pay up to 50%. So say that they needed that technical assistance, did the technical assistance work up, then could they qualify for the loan and do the work after they got the loan money? Because that's how our program would work. So there was an assisted living, it was a large assisted living, and they did a technical assistance. So they put in, they changed the lighting, they changed the chiller system, they made improvements to several other pumps, I think, and some things like that. And so that was all put together in an audit format. And then that we paid up to 50% of that cost. And then once they did the work, they also received the incentives, which happened the next year. So they got full incentive. At that time, it was $100,000 was maximum. Now it would be $100,000 per project type. So I just wonder if that would work in your program like that, where they could do the technical assistance, get part of it paid, and then apply for the loan.
Well, the loan is different than the grant program. If it was a loan, they could probably do that under the terms of the loan, but the grant is a little more restrictive in terms of consultants and I guess technical assistance with assessments and audits. And when you get into engineering, that might be a part of construction. Maybe, what do you think, Ms. Kemp, engineering versus like the technical assistance for audits and things like that?
Yeah, engineering is a professional expense, and that would be eligible. I'll have to check on the.
It just might be an opportunity that we could explore together to see if we could offer it to folks if it came up. But I'm not positive. I'd want to refer you all back to Jesse Herbal on that one.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of time left, but we do have some questions. So hopefully these will be some short answers. I think we just covered, can someone from the USDA explain the technology piece that you mentioned but was unsure about? And I think that was just covered, was it not?
No, that was the 304 million for the underutilized technology. This is new to the agency, and they are still it's still being developed on the regulations are still being developed. An announcement will be out later on what that would consist of.
Okay, thank you. So here's another question. If I have a plan for new construction of an office, cooler, grow area on my property on a separate meter, how would I determine the current cost of electricity to what the savings would be?
I think that goes back to our other answers, that you have no historical data. So it wouldn't be an eligible project if it's new expansion.
Another, I am renovating my project. Would I be eligible for the REAP grant and loan? And that was Sarah, who is looking to open an assisted living facility or a care facility.
I think that would be a side conversation to get a few more details about the project, but my understanding goes back to the, you need some historical data too. And, you know, what are your policies on new development? I mean, it's not usually eligible for energy efficiency, right? Ms. Kemp?
Well, it says renovating. So if
Yeah.
it was assisted living facility previously, then they would have a history. But if
Yeah.
it's new, then no, we can't do it. It has to have at least 12-month history.
Yeah, if they
I'm
were,
trying to find South Carolina works. Employment agency, it's the other pool.
Let me look it up. It's not in this building. Let me look up and let you know what it is.
So then the last one is, and when it talked about the list of providers, it's qualified providers in regard to contractors and auditors as well. That was looking for a list on the USDA site.
right. So a list of qualified or contractors and auditors.
Well, and yeah, and generally those are not lists that we're able to provide.
I do have a list of some, probably about 5 or 6, depending on what exactly you're looking for.
And so then the last one we have, will the answers to these questions be provided to the group? So this event is being recorded. Those people that have confirmed their attendance will receive a post-event survey after this ends. Those that respond to the post-event survey will receive the slide decks as well as a link to the recording. And that may take 7 to 10 working days for us to edit the recording and post it on YouTube to be able to send you the event. So the questions and answers will be within the recording. Again, if anybody has any additional questions that are specific to their industry and their needs, please reach out to Jim Johnson. His email is there, and you can schedule an appointment with him. He will schedule via email, and then you can get, as I said, the confidential one-on-one, no-cost consulting services that the Small Business Development Centers provide. And if there is not anything else, I want to thank everyone for attending, and we will close the event. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Jim?
No, I just thank all the speakers for attending, and Ms. Kemp, Ms. Green for also attending and help answering those questions. There's always a lot of questions around it, and you know, a lot of times it's just a one-on-one conversation that needs to be had to really figure out eligibility requirements. But the folks at the USDA Rural Development are amazing. It's a great program. It's good for just more people to know about it, so they can take advantage of it. Same with Dominion. You know, sometimes both agencies have you know, a hard time getting this information out to the public and to the people who really could use it. So I'm glad we're able to do that today.
And we appreciate you getting this webinar out, and you're awesome as well.
Thank you.